We continue, of course, the story of Bnei Israel, the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, close to being on their way out. And we encounter in this week's Parsha the beginning of not the beginning, but the Jewish people leaving and the beginning of their engagement with mitzvot, with commandments generally. And one of the great commandments, of course, the greatest of all the commandments that's given is the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb. The Jews have to go and they have to slaughter a lamb and they have to eat from it on the night of the 15th. They slaughter on the 14th, they eat of it on the 15th. And it comes with a number of different laws. It's eaten together with matzah and maror. Right, today we don't have the Korban Pesach, we don't have the Paschal lamb. We eat the matzah in its place as the afikomen. We eat it together, literally together, according to Hillel in the Seder, of course, with the maror and with the matzah, because the verse says you have to eat al matzotu rorim. You have to eat it with matzah and maror, and he takes that very literally, some sort of a sandwich eaten together. And we're also told, and this is from chapter 12, Parak Yud Bet, Pasuk Tet, verse 9, Al tochlu mimenu na uvashel mivushal bamayim, ki im tzli eish, rosho al kra'av, al kirbo. Do not eat any of it raw or cooked in any way with water, but roasted, head, legs, and entrails over the fire. And I guess it was placed on a spit. I think of luau's. If anybody's been to a luau or seen a luau with the pig on the spit, rolling around. I'm sure we've all seen it in I don't know, Joe versus the Volcano or some other movie. Does that take place in Hawaii? If you remember that one. So that was the way the Korban Pesach. It was placed on a spit, the lamb, and it was roasted, and it was roasted without any liquid. It was roasted in and of its own juices, which is an interesting idea. It's not an idea that we see in other mitzvot. We don't see it. We only really see it with the Korban Pesach, that the way it has to be cooked, it's very, very specific in terms of the way that it has to be, and it's roasting, it's not cooking. There's no liquid. The word for, in Jewish law, mivushal, levashel, is cooking with liquid. Tzli is roasting. There are those who have a custom not to have any meat that's roasted on the night of Pesach, because you don't have roasted lamb. We don't have the Korban Pesach, so we shouldn't have other roasted meats. And the question is why? Why is it this way that we do not have it roasted? And I saw a very interesting explanation given by the Maharal, great Rabbi Judah Lowy, who was, of course, the rabbi in Prague in the 16th century, most famous for the legend of the golem. Unfortunately, less famous in certain circles for incredible things that he wrote about. And what he says is the following. He says that, and he makes other comments about it as well, but he makes a distinction that the Korban Pesach is eaten roasted. And what does roasting mean? Roasting means that you flavor it with your own juices. It's almost like what's internal, the internal fats and then different things. That's what flavors the meat. When you cook, what are you doing? The liquid, right, that you cook with, those things, they enter into the object. So if you, I don't know, you cook your chicken in, I don't know, prune juice. So then your chicken's gonna have a pruny, plummy taste, right? Like a tagine or something might be. But when you cook it, your lamb, your chicken, then it only has that taste from the fats that are in it. And he points out a distinction. He says, if you think of the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, is the beginning of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. And when the relationship between God and the Jewish people begins, it's very important that the relationship focus just on sort of that relationship, God and the Jewish people, learning the laws that God gives us, understanding the demands that God has upon the Jewish people, understanding the relationship. What is it that God is giving us? What is it that we are giving God? And it has to be it has to be something that's very, very internal and only in and of itself. Cooking represents the idea, he says, of outside influences, as it were, right? The juices, the spices that you use, they enter into your chicken, they enter into your meat, they enter into your lamb. And he says symbolically, that's what's going on here. Pesach is the beginning of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. At the time that the relationship begins, it has to be all about just simply God and the Jewish people, the messages of the Jew towards the Jewish people, the lessons that God, the ideas that God is telling us, with no outside influences. Once we imbibe, once we understand the laws, once we understand what God demands of us, then we can cook. Then we can look at outside influences, outside ideas, outside thoughts that we can then incorporate to enhance our Jewish life. So there have been many ideas and thoughts throughout history since the giving of the Torah that have made their way into Jewish life. Different numerical systems. We're talking about the Maharal. There's a Ficino, I believe, Italian thinker, numerical system where numbers represent certain ideas, like the Maharal. 7 is creation, and 8 is above and beyond creation. The Maharal talks about that in terms of Hanukkah, Brit Milah, different things. So that's not something that started as a Jewish idea. It started from, it was a numerical system, but it was incorporated. The way that many people study Talmud today is called the Brisker methodology, started by Rav Chaim of Brisk, the grandfather of Rabbi Soloveitchik. But he didn't really come up with the method. It was a method of legal analysis that was used, I don't know, in European universities and other places. I'm not saying that he didn't add his own flourishes to it. And he used that method of analysis to then analyze Talmudic texts. We can talk about feminism. Feminism is not something that started amongst the Jews, but it has incorporated into Jewish life in different ways. It has been used to incorporate into Jewish life and Jewish ideals, and how should we treat women, and what leadership positions, and what can women do during the year ritually, etc., etc. And so that's what the Maharal says. Pesach is the beginning of the relationship. When we begin the relationship between God and the Jewish people, there's no outside influences. It has to be tzli eish. It has to be cooked, excuse me, not cooked. It has to roast in its own juices, nothing else besides it. Once we get through that beginning, the beginning of the relationship, we've made the Korban Pesach, then we can look outside. We can look to other ideas, other methods of thought, and we can figure out how to then incorporate that into our Korban Pesach. How is that going to enhance our Jewish life? And it's a beautiful idea, very intriguing idea for the Maharal, again, as to why the Korban Pesach has to be roasted and not cooked. It's only going to be roasted in its own flavors. There's nothing else that's going to come and influence it, but that's only at the beginning. That's only at Pesach. That's not the rest of the year. Beautiful idea from the Maharal explaining why the Korban Pesach is only in it's only roasted and not cooked. We continue in the parsha after, of course, the Jewish people are given the command in chapter 12 to take out to have the Korban Pesach and be ready to leave at any time. And then we have the mashchit, we have the destroyer who's going around, and much like we talked about yesterday, from the Paro's seat to the slaves. Tza'aka godola b'Mitzrayim ki ein bayit asher ein sham meit. There was no house in which there was nobody who died, as opposed to the Jewish people who were protected. The mashchit passed over their houses because they had the blood on the doorpost and the lintel. And Paro, of course, runs to Moshe and says to Moshe, you need to leave. You need to leave right now. You need to get out of here. I never want to see you again. And so Bnei Yisrael, they leave Egypt that at that time on the 15th day of the month of Nisan. It appears from our text here in Parshat Bo that Bnei Israel leave at night. Paro comes to them and says to Moshe, "I don't want to see you anymore. I never want to see you anymore. You need to leave right now." However, there is another verse in Bamidbar which implies that Bnei Israel left not at night but rather during the day. That not that they right. Paro said to them, "Get out of here right now. You need to leave. You need to leave," and running at them and telling them they need to leave. But and by the way, that is here. It's in chapter 12, verse 31. Vayikra Moshe Aaron Laila. He calls them at night. And he says to them, Kumutsu mitoch ami gam atem gam bnei Israel. Go and leave you and all the children of Israel. L'chu ivdu et Hashem kedabrechem. And go and worship your God. Gam somchem, gam bekarchem, k'chu. Go, all of you. And he says, Uvarachtem gam oti. And also bless me that, this should all stop. And the Egyptians are pushing them out. So it implies here that they left at night. In this other place, in Bamidbar, it talks about Yom and implies that they left during the day. And there's an interesting, I don't know if it's a midrash. I think it's cited in the Ibn Ezra saw it a few days ago, where he talks about this question. There's this debate: do they leave at night? Do they leave during the day? And they create sort of a midrashic sort of idea that Paro was telling them to leave at night. But God said to Moshe, the Korban Pesach is to be eaten at home. You have to have the blood on the doorpost, and you cannot leave your house. You need to stay in the house in which you are eating the Korban Pesach. You can't go outside because of the destruction, the devastation, the plague that's happening outside. And so Moshe says, we're not going to leave at night. We're going to wait until the next day. We're going to leave during the day. And in fact, he then reasons, according to the Ibn Ezra and others, that he says, we're not leaving at night. Who leaves at night? A thief leaves at night. A thief runs away scared at night that nobody will see them in the dark. That's the way a thief leaves, embarrassed, scared, worried. He said, are we embarrassed? Are we scared? Are we worried? Is that who we are? That we're running away in this way? No, 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 no. We're going to wait until the day. We're going to leave beyond Ramah. We're going to leave triumphantly where everybody will see us. We have nothing to be embarrassed about. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not a bunch of thieves. This is not like they talk about a perp walk, right? When they take the criminal and then let everybody see him and let them all take pictures. That's not who we are. We're not going to leave at night. We're going to leave in broad daylight. And I think it's a nice idea, two nice ideas, but this last one, a nice idea about how we are as Jews. We have nothing to be embarrassed about. We have nothing to be shamed. Are there Jews who are not good? Are there Jews who are criminals? Yeah, but there are also Africans, Americans who are criminals. There are also Latinos who are criminals. There are also white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who are criminals. We should be proud of who we are. We don't walk away at night. We don't have to walk away in shame. We walk and we stand proudly, the same way our ancestors did when they left, according to this interpretation, during the day, proudly walking out of Egypt as Jews, triumphant people of God.